Gwen's Alameda slams the papers on the table and declares that she won't let him take her son away from her. The man opposing her is the father, and he believes they can reach a reasonable agreement without involving the courts for the sake of their son. To understand how this situation came to be, we must start on a cruise ship 2 years ago. Here, there is good food, good scenery, and even hot men, making it the perfect vacation. At least that's what Gwen's friend Carol thinks, but Gwen's too busy reading Manhwa to enjoy it. They're here because Gwen's father gave her 2 cruise tickets so she could go with her blind date. Gwen's concerned about the cost, but her father wants to make sure she doesn't get lonely as she grows old, and Gwen is determined to make it happen. But her date ended before she could mention the cruise. This happens every time she meets someone new, and Gwen starts to wonder if she needs to change who she is. Back on the cruise, Carol tells Gwen to get off her phone because she probably already missed out on meeting 2 or 3 soulmates by now. It's their last day on the cruise, and Carol is determined to make sure Gwen doesn't leave empty-handed. But Gwen already has this covered as she bought souvenirs, but this isn't what Carol meant. Gwen isn't confident she can find a partner, but Carol insists that she just needs to push herself a little, so they're going to party tonight. They change into appropriate clothing, and Gwen's concerned her outfit is too revealing. But Carol insists that this cute outfit will make every man on this ship go after her. They go to the club and start chatting with 2 guys, and they all introduce themselves. But Gwen's left out while Carol's fitting in, so she feels out of place. When one of the guys makes a joke about Gwen looking young and calls her cute, she doesn't know what to say and just says thanks, but can't keep the conversation going. Every time a guy talks to Gwen, she always gives a dry response, and she soon realizes that she's terrible at this. So Carol decides to forget about getting a man, and says they should just focus on having a good time. But Gwen feels bad because Carol was only trying to help. Carol leaves to get them drinks, and Gwen notices how everyone else seems to be enjoying themselves, and wonders if she'll ever be able to fit in because then she could find the right person to start a family with. But that can't happen because she's sipping her drink on the sidelines. Gwen notices a man who looks like he fits in, but suddenly they make eye contact, and he waves at her and approaches, asking to help him out. And before Gwen can agree, they leave the club together. He just needed an excuse to leave and says he only did it because she was staring at him and asked why she was doing that. Gwen explains that she just noticed how he looked like he was having a good time and didn't mean to make him feel uncomfortable. The man says he can help her have a good time because his friend left him for some women and mentions how talking to strangers can be a pain. But Gwen points out that she's a stranger to him, but the man says that he doesn't dislike her for some reason. Gwen gets worried because the man's trying to smooth talk her, but at the same time, she notices he looks sad. Suddenly, Gwen's stomach grumbles, so the man invites her to dinner while poking her face. But Gwen doesn't like this, so she declines, and the man says goodbye and starts to walk away. Gwen remembers how Carol said that she could have met her perfect match by now if she pushed herself a little. So Gwen calls out to the man and asks if the food is good, and the man's confused. Before they go, Gwen sends Carol an update just to be safe, and they head to a restaurant. They sit at a table where they can easily see the stars, and Gwen's happy because she hasn't eaten food this good since getting on the ship. The man offers to get her more, and Gwen accepts. He then invites her to watch fireworks with him after, and she accepts again, which makes the man wonder if Gwen's too trusting of him. Gwen realizes that she normally wouldn't agree so easily, but she thinks it's fine because he doesn't seem like a bad guy. They go to see the fireworks, and Gwen thinks they're beautiful and is glad she was able to have so much fun on her last day here, but she's still concerned about how the man looks sad every time he smiles. Suddenly, a group of cruise staff appear and congratulate the man for his engagement with Miss Elaine and present them wedding-themed stuffed animals as a gift. After they leave, the man thanks Gwen for going along with it so he could save face in front of those people. He explains that he was supposed to propose to his girlfriend today, which is why he's here, but it didn't work out. Gwen finds this sad and envies the girl for having someone who thoughtfully prepared all this for her. But the man feels bad and apologizes for not being upfront about this, and suggests they end the night here. But Gwen tells him to wait and says she thinks he's a good person and had a lot of fun today and doesn't want to leave him while he's feeling so miserable. The man introduces himself as Arthur Moranti and makes their stuffed animals kiss. Gwen decides to follow Arthur to his room, and after some drinks they hold hands and kiss and get on the bed where Arthur takes off his shirt and they engage in intimate relations. This is how it all started, and in hindsight, Gwen got into this whole mess because she was too agreeable that night. Back to the present, Arthur is having flashbacks of his family worrying about him, a doctor telling him he can no longer conceive children, and his girlfriend wanting to split up. He believed his condition made him worthless, but Gwen still believed he's a good person, and he then wakes up in his lavish apartment. Arthur lives in the city, and after getting ready, he recalls how Gwen was much more abrasive yesterday than her happy self on the cruise. Regardless, he gets a text saying Gwen and their son arrived home safely, and he's glad, and is excited to finally meet his son. Before leaving, Arthur asks his Nana what type of surprise gift he can get that a child would enjoy. At Gwen's house, she's talking to Carol about how she had to agree with Arthur's terms because he had a lawyer. After the lawyer left the room, Arthur urged Gwen to hear him out to not give herself more trouble. Arthur's only request is to have a chance to be a father to their son. But Gwen rejects it because he probably knows nothing about raising a child and bets he only had babysitters his whole life. But Arthur's displeased because he's trying to be fair and not drag the legal case out any longer. Arthur proposes that he gets visitation rights and 3 months to prove that he's capable of being a father to their son, Leon. He also mentions that he really needs Leon in his life, and Gwen's confused what he means by that. Nonetheless, Carol believes that Arthur's the devil and tells Gwen to find a lawyer and to not give up. Gwen agrees with her, and suddenly the doorbell rings, meaning Arthur's here and she's prepared. But the man at the door is wearing a giant panda head, and Gwen's confused. But it's Arthur, and he explains that he wanted to surprise Leon. Gwen suggests he remove it, but Arthur ignores it, and when he approaches the living room, Leon sees him and gets excited, which makes Arthur happy. He takes off his head and asks if he can go near Leon, and Gwen agrees but notices how Arthur's so different from how he was last time they met. Arthur kneels next to Leon and extends his hand, and Leon happily grabs his finger, and Arthur's touched by this. He asks to hold him, but because Gwen doesn't trust him, she says she'll only allow him to go near Leon in her presence. But Arthur isn't amused with her negotiating and insists that he needs to hold Leon to prove that he's a capable father as per their agreement. So Gwen hands him over, and while Arthur's carrying him, Gwen is determined to make sure Leon has a father, but won't let Arthur take him away from her. Arthur mentions how Gwen was scary yesterday, but Gwen only was because Arthur threatened her first. He apologizes and explains he just wanted to see Leon, and then asks how Gwen's been since the cruise. But before she can answer, Leon starts crying, and Arthur decides this is his cue to leave. But he'll be back tomorrow and made sure this house has everything Gwen and Leon will need to live. Arthur says goodbye to Leon and says he'll keep his promise of not involving the courts. But when he sees Leon playing with Gwen's hair, he pushes her hair back out of his hand, telling Leon to not mess with his mother's hair. But Gwen isn't sure if the nice guy persona he showed today is real, but she thinks today went well. But Arthur's question of how she's been lingers in her mind because she's suffered so much since the cruise ended. Gwen's parents had her late, which is why her dad seems old. Her mom passed away when she was young and her dad didn't take many pictures, so Gwen treasures this one a lot. Gwen's dad always pushed her to get a boyfriend, but she wanted it to happen naturally. But Gwen understands where he was coming from because he doesn't want her to be lonely. Soon Gwen's dad passed away and she had no family left. That was the dream Gwen just had, and when she wakes up, she realizes Leon's her only family, so she refuses to give him to anyone. At Arthur's apartment, he's happy everything went well today and can't believe Leon is so cute. He lost all hope of starting a family when he was diagnosed with infertility, but now he has a family. While Arthur wants to know what happened to Gwen after the cruise, he also wants to know why she left so suddenly after that night on the cruise. The next day, Arthur is unable to sleep, and in the office, his assistant Percy is complaining about Arthur resting there next to him instead of doing it literally anywhere else. Regardless, Arthur questions the flowers on Percy's desk, and he explains that it's because he's meeting his ex-wife today. He's trying to repair their relationship and regain her trust to have a better relationship with his daughter. This makes Arthur realize that he's been so focused on Leon that he forgot about Gwen's feelings. At Gwen's house, she promises to buy Leon some cute clothes when she gets a job, and then Arthur appears. Leon greets him, and Arthur mentions that he brought some food, but Gwen says she's fine because she already prepared a meal. So he asks to join them for dinner, and Gwen reluctantly agrees, and Arthur notices her lack of enthusiasm. As Gwen's preparing dinner, she wonders if Arthur will like her food because it probably isn't something he's used to. As Gwen's feeding Leon, Arthur mentions how Gwen and Leon are adorable, and Gwen's concerned by him acting so nice again. He also mentions how, while her food tastes different from his Nana's cooking, it's still good. Arthur explains that his Nana took care of him since he was young, which makes Gwen think he was raised with a silver spoon. So Gwen asks which one is the real him, the nice Arthur today or the Arthur who threatened to take her to court. But he avoids the question by asking why she wants to know, and Gwen gets annoyed and tells him to forget it. Suddenly, Leon starts crying, and after Arthur picks him up to calm him down, he poops, making him speechless. But Arthur's prepared to change Leon's diaper, and Gwen's concerned where he got all the equipment from. But Arthur reassures her that he probably knows what he's doing. So Gwen guides him on the proper diaper changing process, and soon Leon's diaper is changed, and Gwen's glad. Soon Leon's asleep, meaning it's time for Arthur to leave. He mentions that his Nana will stop by soon to help her out. Gwen expected Arthur's visit to be miserable today, but she's pleasantly surprised in a good way. Before Arthur leaves, he presents Gwen with flowers and says that he's still the same guy she met on the cruise, and hopes they can start over as friends this time. All this makes it hard for Gwen to be angry at him. Back at Arthur's apartment, Nana's surprised Arthur has a child and wonders if his mother knows. But he explains she doesn't because he knows she will make a fuss over it, and he doesn't want to worry Gwen. His ex-girlfriend Elaine doesn't know either. Nana's concerned the child isn't his, but the paternity test came back positive. Arthur plans to tell his family eventually, but he wants to spend time with Gwen and Leon first. The only problem is if Gwen will accept him. He spent a long time searching for her until he finally spotted her one day in a small town. Back at Gwen's house, she's cleaning the house when she hears the doorbell, and when she opens the door, Nana greets her and introduces herself as Lydia. Nana explains that even though she's not related to Arthur by blood, she's taken care of him since he was a baby, so she knows how to handle children well. Gwen tries to reject the help because she's already done cleaning, but suddenly Leon starts crying. When Nana picks him up, she notices how he looks like Arthur. She then carries Leon like he's an airplane, and he quickly calms down, and seeing this makes Gwen eager to learn Nana's secret techniques. So Nana teaches Gwen how to clean properly, change a diaper fast, and how not spoon-feeding Leon can be good for his development. Gwen was concerned about Nana at first, but she now knows she's a kind person. Meanwhile, Arthur can't focus at work because he's thinking about how after he gave Gwen flowers, she told him to focus his attention on Leon as opposed to her, and he can't understand why she said that. He wonders if this is because of her family, but he doesn't know where they are, so he orders his assistant to find information about them. He just wants to see Gwen smile again and wishes he looked for her sooner. Back at Gwen's house, she's grateful for Nana's help, but Nana's concerned how Gwen's stuck inside all day. But Gwen says it's not a problem, because it's only been for a few months, but Nana finds this unacceptable. Regardless, Gwen thanks Nana for her help today. But Nana thanks Gwen because she hasn't seen Arthur smile like that in a long time, and urges her to give him a chance. Suddenly, Arthur returns and proceeds to stare at Gwen with a sly expression. When Gwen asks about it, Arthur says that he has a day off tomorrow and asks if she wants to go somewhere. But Gwen says she's too tired for that type of thing. So Arthur suggests he stay the night so he can spend some more time with Leon and Gwen while grabbing her hand. He continues by saying that he wants to pay attention to Gwen too and wants to understand her. But Gwen thinks he's only doing this to get custody of Leon and doesn't know if she can believe his words. Suddenly, Nana appears saying Leon has fallen asleep and suggests they leave. But Gwen says that she'll let Arthur stay the night as long as he agrees to one thing she says, and he agrees as long as it doesn't change their prior agreement. Arthur and Nana are in a bedroom and he asks if she found anything new about Gwen, but she didn't because Gwen isn't talkative. Nana suggests letting Gwen and Leon live in his apartment so they don't have to hide in this house, but Arthur doesn't want to because he doesn't want his mother and sister to know yet. He wants to make it up to Gwen and Leon first because he still feels guilty. Regardless, Nana isn't staying the night but has prepared some necessities for Arthur and tells him to be a good boy. When she tells Gwen she's leaving, Nana pleads with Gwen to give Arthur a chance because he's a kind person and she will be back in the morning. But Gwen's not worried about Arthur's ability to take care of Leon. She's concerned about them being alone together. As Arthur's planning his next move, Leon starts crying and he rushes to help. But Gwen already has it handled. When Arthur asks how to help, Gwen just tells him it's not a big deal. But Arthur knows Gwen's tired, so he gets a stuffed giraffe and acts like it's talking, and this makes Leon stop crying and focus on the giraffe. Gwen's surprised by Arthur's actions, and he suggests he look after Leon so she can rest. But Gwen declines because she thinks he'll take Leon while she's asleep. Arthur apologizes for overstepping and says he just wanted her to relax. So Gwen decides to hand Leon over, but only if she can see him at all times, and Arthur agrees. While Gwen's resting, she's annoyed that she always ends up agreeing with Arthur's demands. Meanwhile, Arthur politely asks Leon to be quiet so Gwen can sleep, and then tells him to act natural when Gwen approaches. Arthur urges Gwen to rest on the couch, but when she declines, he picks her up and Gwen gets embarrassed, but Leon is enjoying the show. After putting Gwen down, Arthur tells her to rest well and goes in for a kiss. But this makes Gwen have flashbacks of their time on the cruise, and she pushes him away while saying they shouldn't do anything they'll regret. Arthur accepts this and decides to play with Leon instead. As Gwen's watching, she continues to have flashbacks of that night on the cruise, but she isn't happy about it. Gwen's now asleep, and Arthur wishes her sweet dreams while touching her hair. In the meantime, Leon's having a photo shoot and going into various cute poses, and Arthur hopes this doesn't wake Gwen up. Gwen soon wakes up and notes this was her first good sleep in a while. But she notices Leon and Arthur aren't in front of her and starts to panic. But Arthur appears holding Leon, complaining about how Leon didn't sleep. Gwen's relieved and thanks him for his help, and Arthur lays down on the couch exhausted. Gwen's surprised Arthur stayed up all night for Leon and says he did well. As Arthur says goodnight, Leon kicks him in the face. Soon Leon wakes Arthur up and it's now the afternoon. Nana's also here, so they start eating. But Arthur's devastated that he slept through his day off he planned to spend with Leon. So Nana suggests Arthur and Gwen go outside for a change, but Gwen declines because she thinks Arthur will buy her everything she wants, and it'll look like she's taking advantage of him. But when Arthur says that he just wants to spend his day off with Leon and her, Gwen agrees just this time. As Gwen's getting ready, she's calling Carol, who got her a lawyer, and says they'll meet him on her day off. This reminds Gwen that Arthur is supposed to be his enemy, but after seeing his effort recently, she doesn't know what to think now. Soon everyone's ready to go and Nana puts Leon into a stroller. As they're walking, Arthur suggests they go to the zoo because Leon likes animals, but Gwen declines because she doesn't have a car seat for Leon yet. Arthur has noticed that Gwen's hesitant about him spending money on her because the stroller they're using has seen better days. So he decides to take her to the grocery store to buy everything she needs. Arthur says that she doesn't have to do everything alone and tells her to let him spoil her. After contemplating this, Gwen agrees, but she promises to pay him back. But she's still conflicted because they're supposed to be enemies. As they're shopping, Arthur thinks Leon needs everything such as the latest air fryer, Lego sets, and a tent. But this makes Gwen exhausted because she feels like she's taking care of 2 children and thinks Arthur's too carefree. Gwen just wants to get this over with, but when she couldn't reach the pan she wants to look at, Arthur appears behind her and grabs it. He says to call him if she needs help because she's a tiny person, but Gwen notes that she doesn't need much more because they have to carry it all back. Arthur's impressed, but Gwen says it's just common sense. When Leon starts making noises, Gwen instantly knows that he's hungry and gives him milk, making Arthur realize Gwen is amazing. At checkout, Arthur's drawing a lot of the attention and all the women are staring at him. Gwen thinks they're probably gossiping about her being with someone like Arthur and is concerned about what other people think of their relationship. As they're walking home, Gwen notices Arthur pacing himself to her and even makes sure she doesn't get hit by a bike that's passing by too closely. But Gwen thinks Arthur's being too protective. They soon cross paths with a family who mention how Gwen and Arthur are the new family who recently moved in. And while Arthur responds by agreeing with them, Gwen thinks calling them a family is a bit too much. Back at home, Nana already left, and Gwen suggests Arthur leave as well because it's getting late. But she suggests Arthur wash up first after everything he's done today, and then angrily walks away. But Arthur's just glad the people outside thought of them as a family. After Arthur finished washing up, he hears Leon crying and instantly appears next to Gwen ready to help, but is shirtless because he forgot to bring a change of clothes with him. Gwen gets embarrassed and tells him to knock next time and leaves. As Gwen's feeding Leon, Arthur apologizes about appearing shirtless earlier, and Gwen brushes it off. Regardless, Arthur mentions that he has a client meeting tomorrow and asks what Gwen is doing, and she says she has plans with her best friend. Arthur recognizes her as the friend from the cruise and asks when he can meet her, but Gwen gets mad and tells him to stop talking about the cruise. As they're watching Leon, Arthur mentions how he was depressed and lost in life before the cruise, and explains how his friend told him to try finding someone special there. Arthur thought it was absurd since he just got dumped, but when he saw Gwen trying her best to talk to new people, he got curious. Gwen questions why Arthur's trying so hard to understand her and asks if he hates her after she left him after their night on the cruise. But Arthur doesn't because he knows Gwen had a good reason for leaving, which is why he wants to understand. He thought they really connected on the cruise and looked everywhere for her after, and Gwen is touched by this. But this moment is interrupted by Arthur getting a call saying his ride's here. So he says goodbye to Leon and thanks Gwen for this opportunity today, and then leaves. But Gwen knows that she can't back down now just because Arthur is being a little nice. So she calls Carol and tells her they can meet with the law firm tomorrow. The next day, Gwen leaves the house while Nana's taking care of Leon. She meets with Carol, who's upset that she can't visit Gwen at home. When Gwen mentions Nana taking care of Leon, Carol thinks Arthur is doing this to work against her in their custody battle. Gwen explains that Nana takes good care of Leon and Arthur seems like he's doing his best. But Carol sees this as Gwen losing her fighting spirit and lowering her guard. Gwen agrees and Carol promises her that they will continue to fight for Leon's sake. When they reach the lawyer's office, they're unsure if it's the right place because it's too fancy, and Gwen definitely can't afford this. But this is the right place, and while Carol's in the bathroom, a man drops the books he's carrying. So Gwen starts helping him pick everything up and offers to help him carry them to his office, and the man is grateful. When they reach the man's office, Gwen hands the books back, but suddenly a different man approaches, stating the law the man is violating for harassing Gwen and its punishment for the first offense. But he notes that this probably isn't the first offense. Gwen's confused about what's happening, but when she turns around, she recognizes the red-haired man as Lance. The blonde-haired man introduces himself as Gale, and they are the lawyers Carol arranged for today. Gwen must be disappointed Carol didn't hire Saul Goodman. Gwen explains her situation and the lawyers are outraged, and Gwen asks if it's possible for her to win. But they say she has nothing to worry about because they're a top law firm in this country, and Lance scored top 1 on the bar exam. Gwen's impressed, which makes Lance blush. Their meeting ends, and as they're leaving, Carol's holding Gale's arm and flirts with him and gives him her number. Lance also asks Gwen if they can talk, and she agrees. In a coffee shop, Lance apologizes for Gale's behavior, but Gwen says it's not a big deal. He then asks why Gwen agreed to Arthur's terms in the first place, but Gwen doesn't understand it either and thinks it would be better if he just left them alone, but she notes that Arthur has some redeemable qualities. She also admits that this situation is partially her fault by putting herself in that situation on the cruise. Regardless, Gwen's relieved someone she can trust is handling her case. This makes Lance remember how he left Gwen in the middle of their date years ago to help advance his law career, and he apologizes for this. But Gwen's happy he's following his dreams, so he shouldn't worry about it. They then exchange contact information and Gwen leaves. But as she's walking away, Lance wonders if this is his chance to be with her, so he calls out to Gwen and puts his arms around her. Gwen wasn't expecting this, and Lance says that this time he will protect her, and then immediately walks away. Bro doesn't understand he's a side character. Stay in your lane, lil bro. As Gwen's going home, Carol apologizes on the phone for leaving with Gale instead of her, but says it was a disaster because he was too flirty. Carol also apologizes for not telling her that Lance was their lawyer, but Gwen says it's better this way since she can trust him. Gwen soon arrives home and is greeted by Nana and Leon. Nana mentions how Arthur might not come tonight, and Gwen isn't bothered by this. Nana then leaves and Gwen promises Leon to not let people take him away from her. She then gets a call from Lance who apologizes about their talk earlier, but he mentions that he needs more information about Arthur to make this work and gives Gwen a plan to get it. It's been 3 days since Arthur's last visit and Gwen assumes he's busy with work. Nana apologizes for his absence and she wonders if Gwen has shown an interest in him because she's been asking about him a lot lately, but Gwen just needs him here to gather information for Lance. At Arthur's work, he's working on a property deal and needs to make sure it works because his late father worked hard to make this project a reality. But Percy tells him to not overwork himself. When Arthur sees the couple's stuffed animals from the cruise next to him, he remembers Nana mentioning how Gwen and Leon have old clothes. Arthur explained that when he tried to buy them new clothes, Gwen rejected him every time. This makes him realize that he doesn't even have her phone number and wonders what she is doing right now and wants to visit them soon. Meanwhile, Gwen appears in front of Arthur's office building because Nana asked him to bring him something he forgot at her house. But Gwen is only doing this because she thinks it's the perfect opportunity to gather information about him. When Gwen asks the receptionist to see Arthur, she tells Gwen she can't because she doesn't have an appointment. Suddenly, Percy recognizes Gwen, so he brings her into the elevator. He's surprised he's meeting her again here and explains that he was also on the cruise. He explains that even though Arthur said he wasn't interested in anyone, he was looking at Gwen the whole time on the cruise. This makes Gwen think Arthur might have been telling the truth. Regardless, Percy wasn't told Gwen would be here, so he decides to surprise Arthur and tells her to hide in his office. But it doesn't work because Arthur's in Percy's office, and Percy mentions that Arthur's jealous since he and Gwen just bonded. So Arthur says that Percy and him will finally be severing their ties. When Percy pleads for forgiveness, saying that it was a joke and that he had bills to pay, Arthur grabs Gwen and walks away. Gwen explains that she's here to deliver something, and Arthur's grateful for Nana setting this up for him. So Arthur puts his arm around Gwen, and when she questions it, he explains that he's recharging and says that he missed her. Arthur suddenly becomes serious and tells Gwen to not talk to strangers like Percy because he's trouble. But Gwen immediately gets a phone call, and it's Percy saying that Arthur forgot to take his coffee. But Arthur doesn't want his coffee anymore and is annoyed because Percy has Gwen's phone number and he doesn't. After seeing the stuffed animals from the cruise, Gwen says she's going to leave because it makes her uncomfortable. Arthur offers to go somewhere together, but Gwen declines and walks out. But Arthur follows her through the hall anyway. Gwen stops him and explains that she doesn't want people to misunderstand their relationship and doesn't want to cause trouble because that's why he's hiding her and Leon in the first place. But when Arthur notices Percy entering the hall, he grabs Gwen's hand and takes her around the corner so they're not seen, proving Gwen's point. The lady Percy is with is irritated how Arthur is in charge of the important land deal and wants to close the deal when the seller arrives before Arthur gets the chance. They've now left, and Arthur didn't want Gwen to see that. He's about to leave as well, but Gwen asks if he's still on his break, and he is, so they go outside. Arthur never imagined Gwen would be inviting him somewhere, but Gwen's more surprised that Arthur's actually busy because she assumed he was just fooling around. But now she knows he's serious. Arthur explains that this company was passed down from his father, but he doesn't really want it. His real dream is to meet someone special, fall in love, and start a family. Gwen instantly recognizes this as her dream, and when Arthur says it's boring, Gwen says it's actually romantic. Arthur enjoys being around Gwen, so he thanks her for giving him this break. Gwen's confused, but Arthur explains that Gwen purposely invited him out here to make him feel better, but Gwen denies it. Regardless, Arthur apologizes for not visiting for the last few days, but Gwen doesn't comment and just gets up and decides to leave because Arthur's feeling better now. Arthur urges her to stay, but she gets angry and says that if he's going to stay in the office all day, then their agreement is pointless because he's not even trying to spend time with Leon. Arthur says nothing and Gwen starts to leave, but Arthur tries to see her out. But Gwen declines, and before she leaves, Arthur asks for her number, and she agrees to give it to him. He asks if he can text her 4 times per day, but Gwen says he can only text her if it's important. So Arthur sends her a picture of Leon because it's important and Gwen finds it cute. Gwen gets in the elevator alone, but when the door closes, her chest feels tight, and she realizes that she enjoys being around Arthur. She thinks this is a bad thing and tries to snap herself out of it. How foolish. When Gwen enters the lobby, a woman with red hair recognizes her and asks where she has ran off to. Gwen is devastated to see this woman. The woman explains that her family made sure Gwen had everything she needed and even loved her as their own immediate family, and yet she left without telling anyone. After Gwen's father passed away, she lived with her biological father for a short time, and they were always mean to her. They made her feel unwelcomed by making her clean the house while everyone else went on trips. They only let her stay because she's still technically family. Every day Gwen tried hard to fit in, thinking they would think of her as family, but nothing ever changed. When Gwen finally realized this, she got a part-time job to get her own place. But it wasn't easy, and she was constantly on the verge of tears. Due to her stepsister Camilla's poor treatment of her, she can only recall bad memories from that time. So Gwen finally stands up for herself and declares that they never loved her, so she owes them nothing. Camilla's surprised by Gwen talking back, so she embarrasses her in front of everyone by saying Gwen was knocked up by a random man. Gwen's about to cry, but suddenly, Arthur appears and asks what's going on. Camilla's disgusted by him interrupting them, and Gwen uses this opportunity to escape while Camilla goes to her meeting. Arthur chases Gwen outside to help her, but Gwen doesn't want to involve him in her family matters. Suddenly, Arthur puts his hands on her shoulder and asks Gwen to at least hear what he has to say. Arthur explains that while he's not good at handling these types of situations, he's always here to listen to her, and she doesn't have to share anything she doesn't want to. But Gwen doesn't respond and starts crying and apologizing. So Arthur tries to comfort her by asking Gwen what she thinks about her, Leon, and him becoming a family. Gwen's confused because she already agreed to visitation and doesn't want to use this situation as an excuse for something like this because it's a serious decision. But Arthur knows this and mentions that he doesn't regret some of the things he's done, such as meeting her and making love to her. This makes Gwen embarrassed, and before she can respond, Arthur gets a call. Gwen doesn't know what to think about what Arthur said because she never had a normal family situation, and the only family she has left are cruel to her. When Leon was born, Gwen promised to be the best family he had, and she knows Arthur being around is best for him. But what Gwen doesn't understand is why a man of such high status like Arthur would want her because he could have any other woman and/or women he wanted. So Gwen says that this isn't a solution since they barely know each other and aren't in love with each other. Arthur asks how she can be so sure of that when they never tried it, and suggests they have a serious conversation about this as adults tonight. As Arthur's going back to work, Gwen's concerned because she needs to tell him the truth for why she left him that night on the cruise. In the office, the meeting with Camilla starts before Arthur arrives. The lawyer mentions that everything with the deal is fine except one detail. They need Gwen to sign off on it because she's the legal heir from her father's legal marriage. Camilla is outraged. As they're leaving, Arthur walks past them, and Camilla recognizes him from earlier. But Arthur's aunt is angry at him for missing the meeting because it's unprofessional. After she leaves, Arthur thinks about resigning from his job. Percy urges him not to get pressured by his aunt because he always produces good results. But Arthur reveals that it's because he's thinking of getting married soon. Percy thinks he's rushing into it with Gwen, but Arthur reveals that they already have a child, making Percy speechless. Arthur says that he and Gwen have a 7-month-old son who is living at one of his properties, but he thinks if he approached the situation normally and didn't threaten them, he wouldn't be in this situation. Regardless, Arthur hasn't been able to take his eyes off Gwen since he first saw her. She makes him feel comfortable, and he wants to make sure she and Leon are taken care of. This is his chance to become a family. Camilla is leaving the room and doesn't know what to do because they've been doing this deal behind Gwen's back. Since they have a bad relationship with her, they can't just ask her to come and sign the papers. She also can't believe that she's considered an illegitimate child. But she did see Arthur and Gwen together today, and she thinks Arthur is somehow connected to Gwen's son. At Gwen's house, Leon's watching Baby Shark when she arrives home. She's grateful for Nana always helping her out with Leon, which makes her feel like she's the bad guy here. Gwen takes a shower and doesn't know how to feel about everything that happened today regarding seeing Camilla and what Arthur said about becoming a family. Arthur then arrives and greets Leon, noting that he's heavier since he last came. He goes to find Gwen, but she opens the bathroom door only wearing a towel, thinking Nana came back, which makes Arthur speechless and Leon excited. But Gwen gets embarrassed and slams the door. Later, Leon is still watching Baby Shark, and Gwen's still angry for Arthur coming unannounced. But Arthur wanted to surprise her and offers to dry her hair because he used to do this for his little sister. Gwen didn't know Arthur has siblings. He explains that he's the oldest sibling and has 2 little sisters, with the middle being around Gwen's age while he's 31. Gwen's surprised because she thought Arthur was younger than him based on his youthful appearance. She also feels bad because Arthur helped take care of his sisters, and she told him that he knew nothing about raising a child when they first met again. Arthur asks Gwen about her family situation, and while Gwen doesn't want to talk about it, she thinks it's only fair she shares. She explains that both her parents passed away. Her stepfather took her in while her biological father was with her other family. The woman they met at the office was her sister Camilla, and they didn't treat her well when she stayed with them. Suddenly, Arthur asks her to hold the blow dryer, and he performs a dance to Baby Shark playing on the TV. Leon enjoys this, and Gwen laughs. Arthur is glad. Arthur then brings out the snacks he brought and feeds them to Gwen, and she seems to like it. He also comments how Leon really likes Baby Shark, and Gwen says that even Nana complained about it, but she's fine with it as long as Leon's happy. Regardless, Arthur asks if Gwen is free tomorrow so they can hang out with Leon, but Gwen declines, so Arthur asks if she wants Leon to have a happy family. But Gwen says no. She thinks Leon deserves a father, but them playing family when they aren't in love would only hurt Leon. Arthur insists that Gwen give him a chance because he's serious. But then Gwen reveals that Arthur's ex-fiancée was there that night on the cruise. On the cruise, after Gwen drinks water in Arthur's room, he offers to walk Gwen back to her room. But Gwen ignores this because she doesn't understand why Arthur's fiancée would leave such a dependable man like him. Arthur explains that most people see him as careless, but Gwen says he's a good person. Arthur is touched by this and says that he's comfortable around her, and he asks Gwen to stay with him tonight, and she agrees. After their activities, Gwen wakes up the next day and she can't believe it was real, and ponders whether or not she should wait for Arthur to wake up. But when Gwen looks at her phone, she sees a text saying that her father is in the hospital from cardiac arrest and decides to leave now because it's an emergency. But when Gwen opened the door, Arthur's ex-fiancé was there. Seeing her made Gwen feel like she ruined the chance for Arthur and her to get back together, and she can't forget the face Arthur's ex-fiancé made when she saw her. But Arthur says that's impossible because he knows his ex-fiancé's name wasn't on the cruise's guest list. But when Gwen says that his ex-fiancé's name is Elaine, Arthur knows she was actually there. Gwen thinks Arthur is trying to trick him, but he explains that he really was single for months before the cruise and was looking for Gwen everywhere after the cruise. Gwen reveals that she also looked for Arthur after she found out she was pregnant, and Arthur apologizes for not looking for her sooner while kissing her head. So Arthur asks Gwen to give him another chance to prove himself to her and Leon. Leon agrees with Arthur, and this makes Gwen realize she needs to stop thinking only about herself. The scene shifts to a bar where Lance and Carol are talking about Gwen. Carol feels responsible for everything that happened because she pushed Gwen to go out on the cruise. But she doesn't understand why Arthur suddenly showed up. Lance thinks it must have been rough for Gwen, but there isn't much to be done since they can't remove Arthur's visitation rights. Back at Gwen's house, she asks Arthur if they can give Leon a loving family. While Arthur's not entirely sure, he thinks a good place to start is to clear up all of their misunderstandings by getting to know each other better. The next day, Arthur suggests they adjust their schedule by seeing each other twice a week so he can see Leon more. Leon agrees with Arthur's proposal, but Gwen says it means nothing because he's just babbling. Regardless, Gareth just brought Leon's car seat so they can now go more places. Gwen's concerned that this isn't reasonable because Arthur is supposed to be really busy, but Arthur doesn't want to let this opportunity go to waste. Nana will not be joining their outing again, and while Gwen's a bit concerned, she remembers it was fun the last time they went out together. Then Gareth appears and presents Gwen with Sir Leon's new baby carriage, and Gwen's concerned why he's referring to Leon as Sir. Arthur has disappeared, and Gareth explains that he went to install Leon's car seat himself based on videos online. Gwen's unsure if it will be safe, but Gareth reassures her that he will fully inspect it before they leave. He also mentions how Arthur was really excited about getting a car seat and how he hasn't seen Arthur this happy in a long time. Gwen then goes to the car with Leon and Arthur puts him in the car seat, but Gwen's still concerned about how secure the car seat is. Arthur mentions how this is their first trip together and puts Gwen's seatbelt on for her in a romantic manner. They soon arrive at a shopping center because Arthur wants to buy things for Leon in the house. They first go to a clothing store where the staff know Arthur by name, but Gwen's concerned that this is a waste because Leon will quickly grow out of everything they buy, but Arthur insists and the store employee claims they have a good selection. So Gwen allows it and Leon tries on a variety of stylish outfits, and Gwen can't believe how cute they look on him. Seeing this, Arthur suggests Gwen also try something on, but she declines. In his previous relationships, Arthur's used to women always accepting the gifts he offered, but Gwen hasn't accepted anything and he doesn't know how to change that. But he remembers Percy mentioning how gifts don't have to be material things. So he suggests they go to a sweet shop, and Gwen hesitantly agrees. Arthur then asks the store employee for a dress that would suit Gwen, but she suggests Arthur pick one out himself because she knows Gwen would feel more appreciated that way. Arthur understands and the employee urges him to buy lots from their shop. Bro's getting finessed. After shopping, they get food, but Arthur's concerned that Gwen's only getting one item. But Gwen explains that she can't eat most of the food because she's still nursing Leon, so she needs to watch what she eats. Arthur wonders if this is the type of struggle Gwen has faced while she was alone. He also suggests that Gwen consider today as a cheat day and urges her to eat more and proceeds to feed her. Arthur thinks Gwen is being more cooperative and sharing her thoughts with him, but maybe not because she comments how he's very close to her. After eating, Gwen doesn't know where else to go, but Leon has other plans as he gets excited seeing a bear. So Arthur picks him up to take a picture with it, and Gwen is happy to see Leon so happy like this. Suddenly, a girl runs up to the bear with a man chasing behind her. This man is Percy, and his daughter Fiora explains that this is her 4th birthday party, and Arthur is jealous he wasn't invited. Gwen is also concerned about Percy seeing them together, but Arthur says that he already knows and can be trusted. Percy's ex-wife Bianca appears, and Arthur introduces Gwen as his partner, which makes her embarrassed. Percy suggests Arthur and Gwen join them, but Bianca clearly doesn't like that idea, so Arthur declines so they can celebrate Fiora's birthday as a family. After they leave, Arthur explains that Percy and Bianca are co-parenting, and Fiora stays with her mother most of the time. But he thinks it's good that it's working for them, in case his and Gwen's situation gets worse. This reminds Gwen of her bad time living with her stepfamily, and says that she wants Leon to grow up with a family that's together because she doesn't want him to have the same experience as her. So Arthur leans in and tells her to hurry up and fall in love with him already, but Gwen wonders if that's possible. Suddenly, Arthur says it's time for a family picture, and while Gwen wasn't ready, it turned out great. They're now in the car, and Arthur doesn't want today to end. Luckily for him, they're stuck in traffic. They soon get home and Leon's making a noise, and Gwen knows this means he's hungry, because he's been sleeping for a long time. So Gwen feeds him and asks Arthur if he wants to give it a try, and he accepts. But when he brings the spoon towards Leon, he doesn't open his mouth. This confuses Gwen because Leon eats everything, but she assumes it's because he's not comfortable being fed by others yet. Being rejected by Leon makes Arthur feel lonely. After some more attempts, Leon finally lets Arthur feed him. Gwen then says they should coordinate their schedules and says Leon has a vaccination and doctor's appointment tomorrow and Arthur wants to go. Gwen's concerned because Arthur has work and Percy will probably be doing his work if he's away. But Arthur really wants to be there because he knows shots are scary for children. Gwen agrees and notes that the appointment is early morning and is pretty boring, but Arthur says he never gets bored when he's with them. Gwen questions how she fell for someone with such cheesy pickup lines. Regardless, Arthur notes that he fed Leon 200 milliliters of food and hopes they bonded over this. Seeing Arthur being proactive about taking care of Leon, Gwen invites him to stay the night so he and Leon can bond more, and then leaves in embarrassment. Arthur can't believe Gwen invited him to stay, but he's still hurt that Leon didn't trust him enough to be fed by him earlier. After Arthur takes a shower, it's time for Leon's bath, and Arthur wants to help, and Gwen allows it. So Arthur washes Leon's hair and messes around with the bubbles, and Leon enjoys this. Afterwards, Gwen puts Leon to bed and Arthur lays down on Gwen's bed so they can finish aligning their schedules. Gwen doesn't like Arthur kidding around like this and wants to talk outside. But Arthur says this is his way of getting to know her better because he's currently fighting his nerves. Arthur puts Gwen's hand on his chest as proof his heart is beating fast, but tells her not to fondle it too hard. Gwen gets embarrassed, but Arthur says he's just kidding. Arthur then touches Gwen's face and she leans in as if they're about to kiss, but Arthur only kisses her forehead and wishes her good night. He also wishes Leon good night and then leaves the room wondering if he's moving too fast. Suddenly, Gwen exits her room because she forgot her phone and then wishes Arthur goodnight. Gwen then looks at her missed texts from Carol, which makes her realize that she forgot to discuss the current situation with the law firm. She then gets a text from Arthur with the picture they took at the mall and saying that he's glad they could spend time together. Gwen replies by saying she had fun, and Arthur can't believe Gwen liked it. The next morning, Gwen wakes up and expects Leon to be crying. But she hears nothing and notices he's not in his crib and doesn't know why. So Gwen rushes outside only to find Leon eating and Arthur making breakfast. Gwen tells him to not take him away like that, but Arthur explains that he woke up early and wanted her to sleep more. Arthur offers her breakfast and Gwen accepts because she's hungry. Nana's also here and they prepare to eat Arthur's food. But when they take a bite, Nana looks down and says she'll make something else because Arthur's food is too salty. Seeing Arthur always trying new things to help out makes Gwen remember what it's like to get help from others, and she feels horrible because they need to update their legal terms soon. Afterwards, they go to Leon's doctor's appointment, and everyone comes because Arthur's going to work after this. Arthur checks Leon in, and the nurses are jealous of Gwen and call Arthur a dilf. Arthur's handed a form that needs to be filled with Leon's information, and he assumes his last name is Morante, but Gwen says Leon uses her last name Zalameda. But Arthur says Leon will be Leon Morante soon, and Gwen agrees as long as Leon wants that last name when he grows up. But Arthur points out that she will also have his last name soon once they get married. Hearing this makes Gwen anxious, and she goes to return their filled out form. But instead of handing it in, she asks for another form, and after recalling that she needs to make the right decision for Leon, she hands in the changed form. Soon the doctor calls Leon Morante, and Arthur is glad Gwen accepted the change. Meanwhile, a woman with the same purple hair as Arthur and Leon turns around and asks Nana to share more details about this situation. Nana encountered Arthur's little sister Faye when she was leaving this morning, but she doesn't understand how she knows about Leon. But since the doctor's appointment will take a while, Faye says she'll meet Arthur in his office later, and Nana doesn't know if this is bad news. Leon's checkup now begins. His weight and height are measured and he's struggling to stay still, but Gwen and Arthur try to calm him down, and it works. Afterwards, the doctor says that Leon is healthy, but he is 1 kilogram above the ideal weight, and asks if Gwen feeds him when he cries, and she says yes. The doctor explains that this is common, and a calmer environment might help. She also discourages the use of media for babies because it can cause obesity and development issues, which means no more Baby Shark for Leon so he doesn't become an iPad kid. Arthur isn't concerned about Leon being slightly overweight because they can train in the gym together. It's time for Leon shots and Gwen's concerned, but Leon only cries a little and then comforts him in her arms. Gwen never thought a doctor's visit could be this enjoyable. Arthur now has to get back to work and wishes them goodbye. But Nana rushes over to Arthur with urgent information, and his expression tells Gwen something is wrong. Before Gwen goes home, she wants to get Arthur a present for all the effort he's been putting in recently. Nana points out that he will be happy with anything she gets him, but Gareth suggests she get something he can use. But Gwen's struggling to find something she thinks Arthur will like. As she's browsing, she thinks about how Arthur could have taken Leon away from her by now, but didn't. So she wonders if hiring the law firm was really necessary, and if Carol is too worried because Arthur has done nothing but prove that he's a good person and wants the best for her and Leon. Suddenly, Gareth suggests Gwen get Arthur a hair product because he likes his hair. So Gwen picks something out and she wonders if this good feeling will last. At Arthur's office, Faye is waiting and confronts Arthur. Arthur asks why she's here, but Faye just whines about Arthur not being happy to see her, and says she's here because he's been skipping work. But Arthur says that he knows she already knows everything. So Faye reveals that she saw him with an unknown woman and baby at the mall, and knew it was his because the baby is a carbon copy of him. She knows this is the reason Arthur has been absent from work, so she pesters him to tell him the details. But Arthur tells her to mind her own business. Regardless, Faye didn't think Arthur had time after taking over the company and never thought he would settle down after he broke up with Elaine. But he did and just needed to figure some stuff out before telling more people. He also hasn't told Gwen about his condition and he needs to tell her soon so she knows why Leon means so much to him. But he doesn't want to be crushed again like what happened with Elaine. Faye assumes Gwen hates him and Arthur's lack of response means it's true. So Faye promises she will help make Gwen like him, and Arthur's annoyed because he wishes a quieter member of the family found out first. Back at the mall, Gwen hopes Arthur will like the gift she picked out. She then gets a call from Arthur saying that he will visit later today. Nana's concerned if Gwen's bothered by his late visits, but Gwen doesn't mind and just wants to make something he will like for dinner, but then gets embarrassed and claims she just wants to return the favor. Arthur can't believe Gwen agreed to come tonight, and Faye explains that she knew it would work because she has 5 years of marriage experience. But first, they have business to attend to and join the meeting with Camilla. Arthur instantly recognizes her as the woman who harassed Gwen and is her half-sister. He can't believe he needs the land from them of all people, but Camilla's confident she can get it done. Back at Gwen's house, she gets dropped off and says she enjoyed the doctor visit with Arthur. She looks forward to him coming tonight. Arthur's meeting is now finished, and before Camilla leaves, Arthur stops her and says he can help them on one condition. They must to apologize to Gwen and reflect on their actions. Camilla says she understands and looks like she regrets her actions, and Arthur tells her to do it sooner rather than later, and then walks away. But as soon as he leaves, Camilla bursts out laughing because now she knows for sure that Arthur is the father of Gwen's child, and he will be the one apologizing if this scandal becomes public. Gwen's having a dream where she asked her dad if she's an abandoned child because she heard someone say that. But her dad says that she isn't, and he will never abandon her, and she will eventually have someone by her side forever. But then her dad disappears and Gwen starts crying. Suddenly, Arthur wakes her up and she's confused, but she starts panicking when she sees Faye in front of her. She introduces herself as Arthur's prettiest little sister and asks if she can call Gwen sister-in-law, but Gwen says it's a bit much. Faye then sees Leon and picks him up in awe. But Arthur tells Leon to not cling to her too much, and Gwen is concerned where her genes went for Leon. Regardless, Arthur explains he didn't really want Faye to meet her, but she kept insisting. But Gwen says it's all right and leaves to set up dinner. Arthur once again apologizes for this, and Gwen's concerned about a family member finding out. But Arthur explains that Faye finding out is the best case scenario. Regardless, Arthur says Gwen looks tired and wonders if she prepared all this because he said he was coming over. But Gwen denies this and says this is just payment for him making breakfast. Arthur understands and is glad. Faye's watching and comments how she hopes it's just food they're cooking in there and tells Leon that he might become a big brother soon. They start eating and Faye thinks Gwen's food is amazing. She can't believe Arthur found someone as great as her and wants Gwen to be her wife instead. Since Arthur's from a well-off family, Gwen assumed they would be condescending like in the dramas. But she's relieved that Faye's a kind person and wishes she had the close sibling bond Faye and Arthur have. Regardless, Faye says the real reason she's here is because their mom's birthday is coming up, and she wants Gwen and Leon to be there because she thinks it'll be a good way to introduce them to the family. Gwen's concerned that their family won't accept her and Leon, but Faye says that won't happen, because if anything, Faye and Arthur won't be accepted by them. Back when they were talking in Arthur's office, Faye's confused about what Arthur's been doing. Gwen is single, they already have a child and they're attracted to each other, so he should just propose. He needs to make his intentions to marry more obvious. As Arthur thinks about this, he wonders if Gwen will accept him after finding out he's sterile, but since it's Gwen, he thinks it'll be okay. Gwen agrees to meet Arthur's family, which surprises him. After dinner, Gwen explains that she agreed to meet his family because she thinks it's best for Leon to have a family as he grows up. But as Gwen says that, Arthur grabs her hand and asks if she's really only doing this for just Leon. He urges Gwen to consider what's best for her as well, but she's still conflicted because they're not a real couple. Suddenly, Faye appears saying that she will take care of Leon tonight, so Gwen and Arthur can get started on making their second child. Spend some quality time together. They weren't expecting this, but they agree because they have some things to talk about. They're getting ready for bed, and Gwen thanks Faye for this opportunity because she and Arthur really need to have a serious talk. But Faye says she's worried about Arthur because he's slow at things. But Gwen knows this isn't true because of what happened on the cruise. Regardless, Faye was surprised when she saw them together in the mall because Arthur looked genuinely happy. Gwen has heard that a lot recently and asks if Arthur had an emo phase before she met her, and Faye confirms this and says it's her fault. She's the one who suggested he propose on the cruise and she feels guilty. But before she can finish her sentence, Gwen says Faye feels guilty because Elaine never showed up, and then mentions that she actually met her on the cruise. This makes Faye start crying and hug Gwen without explanation. Arthur's in a different room and doesn't know what Gwen wants to talk about in private, and immediately assumes Gwen wants to do some bedroom cardio. But Arthur knows Gwen isn't that type of woman. Back in Gwen's room, Faye expresses how hard it must have been for her, and says she'll take care of Leon now so Gwen and Arthur can talk now. As she's walking out, Gwen's planning to define their relationship today and discuss their future. But when she walks in, she sees Arthur undressing, and neither of them expected this. So Arthur asks Gwen to take a seat while he finishes. Afterwards, he tells Gwen she will be fine when she meets his mother because she has him and he will guide her through it. This makes Gwen ask how he can be so kind when they barely know each other, and even now he's still trying his best. So Gwen asks what they are. Gwen wants to convince herself that being with Arthur is only for Leon's sake, but maybe that's not the truth. Suddenly Arthur leans in and says he likes Gwen and wants to be with her. Arthur says he's only like this because he's with Gwen and then leans in close as if they're about to kiss. But Arthur pulls himself away and apologizes, saying Gwen is just too cute. So Arthur asks if he can hug her instead, but says he's kidding. But Gwen says he can hug her. Arthur wasn't expecting this and he hugs her, saying that he doesn't like her getting mad at him. Gwen puts her hand on his shoulder and asks if he would still like her if she told him that she had a meeting with her own lawyers. Arthur says he would still like her as if it wasn't a question to begin with. He's also glad Gwen's opening up about all this because he's already discussed everything with his legal team, and they think it's best if he and Gwen come to an agreement. And Gwen thinks the same way. Arthur's relieved this talk didn't involve them fighting. As Gwen's thinking, Arthur notices the gift Gwen bought for him for always taking care of Leon, and he's ecstatic while Gwen's embarrassed. The gift is a hairpin of what's probably a dog, and Arthur likes it a lot and wants Gwen to put it on him. Gwen tells him to do it himself, but she does it anyway and wishes she can say thank you to him out loud someday. Suddenly, Gwen remembers that Arthur claims to not be this kind around everyone, but on the cruise, he was surrounded by women, which doesn't make sense. So she asks how many people Arthur's dated. He immediately recognizes this as a trap question, where if he says he's dated a lot, Gwen will be outraged. But if he says he's dated no one, Gwen will call him a liar. She will be mad no matter what he says. But Arthur found a way because after not responding, Gwen tells him to forget it and says she shouldn't have asked him that. But Arthur explains that he just didn't know how to respond. He explains that he dated several people, but now he is here for Leon. He will also never forget how Gwen treated him when he was at his lowest on the cruise, and Gwen is satisfied with his answer. Anyway, Gwen thinks it's late and starts to head back to her room. She's leaving so suddenly because she doesn't want Arthur to notice she's happy when they're together. But for some reason, she always feels inexplicably sad after he leaves. Before she can leave, Arthur blocks the door with his hand and asks Gwen if she would like to stay the night. He brings his lips towards her, saying that he already reached his limit. They then kiss, and Gwen isn't holding back anymore. But before they can continue, Leon starts crying. So Gwen goes to check in on him, thinking he just needs his diaper changed, but Faye says this is an emergency because Leon has a high fever and is sick. Thank you for watching. This video recapped chapters 1 through 23 of the manhwa titled Hello Baby. Please like and subscribe for the next part and see you next time.